Good afternoon. The Ravens just last night announced a big signing to their coaching staff. They have brought back former defensive coordinator Chuck Pagano to the secondary. We will talk about that coming up. How about Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry giving a snub to the Pro Bowl? We hear about Pro Bowl snubs. Well, this was in the reverse direction. We'll talk about that and what it means for the Pro Bowl. And then Jamal Lewis, he came out and he kind of slammed the Ravens coaches for some of the decision-making late in the divisional round game. So we'll take a listen to that. Thank you to Dreams for the shout out. He mentioned that yesterday and then sent it my way. So we will dissect that. So I am Sarah Ellison, and you may think that I'm solo today. Oh, but I am not. Look who I got with me, Bobby Baltimore, back in the house. Bobby, I know you're not 100%, but you're here. You're here inside the vault. How are you, buddy?
I'm a dead man walking over here, but I couldn't do it anymore, right? I mean, I was just like, I got to get back on this show because you have been crushing it. And at some point, even though I'm not out of the woods, you just got to kind of fight through it. So here we are. Have some patience with me today out there. I know you will, but hopefully our audience will as well. Been battling since Buffalo, and I've hated to not be obviously here with you to kickstart the off season, but sometimes things, the flu, walking pneumonia, apparently it's evolving into an upper respiratory infection now. Who knows? I got a telehealth appointment coming up later this afternoon, but that's neither here nor there. Thank you for holding down the fort, and I know we got a lot to get to over the course of the next hour.
Listen, I'm looking at chat. They're just happy you're alive. They're happy you're alive. So Buffalo may have kicked you. You may have been down, but you're getting back up. And I know you really want to get back up because you got a flight to the Super Bowl coming up next week. So we got to get you better for that.
I was going to say, this is crazy. I mean, Radio Row that you alluded to there is something that, we worked together last year in Vegas, and I'm going to be there while you're in Columbus next week doing the show as usual at noon Eastern. Mm-hmm. But hopefully we'll have guests and different voices coming in and out. So, but yeah, there's a sense of urgency right now to get myself right before I hit the road. So obviously, some of you are already commenting on, yes, this is my Todd Monken off-season voice, I guess, because it is raspy and then some, and it's been rough. I'm probably down, I think 10 to 15 pounds. Last time I checked, it was around 11. And in all seriousness, it's been really, this is as sick as I've ever been.
Yeah.
It is flu A, and walking pneumonia is what it ended up evolving into. And now that I'm done with my Tamiflu and done with the prescribed cough syrup and everything that was given to me, now I got to figure out if this isn't an upper respiratory infection. So we could go on and on about what my last 10 days has been like. The only positive is that I have been able to, for the first time in my life, thoroughly watch The Wire. All right. I've been ripping through The Wire. So it's been productive in that sense. Yeah. But from a content perspective, you have been on an island and you have been crushing it. So just wanted to say thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I also, thank our listeners because I have not been close to noon pretty much all week. So it is what it is. So all of us getting through it together. So what do you say we jump into this Chuck Pagano news that came out late last night? First, it was Tom Pelissero to kind of put it out. Chuck Pagano is reuniting with John Harbaugh. Look at the photo that Tom Pelissero used to break this news. Look at 2008 John Harbaugh with almost no grays and a Chuck Pagano back then. Chuck is now 64. This is back in 2008, where when John Harbaugh was hired, he brought in Pagano on his very first staff as the secondary coach. John Harbaugh and the team put out a statement to announce that he's coming back again as a senior the senior secondary coach. Harbaugh said it is exciting to add Coach Pagano to our defensive staff and continue to develop grow our young and talented secondary. Chuck brings a wealth of knowledge, experience, and coaching talent to our team. He has deep ties with the program and is excited to get to work. Bobby, what was your reaction when you first saw this news?
I couldn't think of a downside. I couldn't think of one downside to this. He has the experience that he brings to the table, obviously, is what comes to mind at first. But then you think about the familiarity with the organization. You can even look at this from a visibility standpoint. This is somebody who has kept himself young through the Pat McAfee show. And right now, past my camera, he's currently interviewing from what looks to be not in the Indianapolis studio where McAfee and the guys do their daily show from, but it looks like Chuck is in the comfort of his own home, meaning he's no longer a part of the McAfee show. But I think you've seen him be really visible to a younger audience. I think he's kept himself young through the McAfee show. And I think this is a total no-brainer. And I don't know if he's going to directly fill the shoes that Dean Pease leaves behind, even though he'll still be involved some way. It's not going to be in a full-time basis. So that was my understanding coming off last week's end of season press conference. But man, you think about, the head coach pedigree that he has from his time in Indianapolis, the familiarity that he has with this organization, having already been an assistant under John Harbaugh. I can't think of one downside. Can you?
I can think of the one that people bring up the most, which is like, wait, are there too many, like voices that know what they're doing? And then maybe because you got Dean Pease too. I am not worried about that in the least bit because neither Chuck Pagano nor Dean Pease are looking to move up the coaching ladder. They're both coming out of retirement. They're both just here they're not looking to stick out. You know what I mean? It's not real competition. So I can see if there were like a bunch of people fighting for positioning. They are straight up here to support a defensive coordinator that especially Dean Pease knows as a player. When Pagano left, here's what's funny. When Pagano left to be the head coach for Indianapolis, it was Dean Pease that replaced him. But these are two guys that love this program, that love football, but have life outside of the football and are not looking to show up Zach Orr. They are purely here because they love the program. They want to build up Zach and they see the potential and they work well with John Harbaugh also. Obviously, Dean Pease works well with Chuck Pagano. Bobby, when both Chuck and I were at the Ravens at the same time, I stayed a little bit longer than Chuck. So let me just give you a little rundown of who this guy is to those that may be coming in to the Ravens during the Lamar Jackson era, and then you may not know him. First of all, when I first learned about Chuck, it was through Ed Reed, because Ed Reed sang his praises. Chuck Pagano coached Ed Reed at the University of Miami, and they had a great relationship from the start there, okay? Like we've said, he joined the Ravens in 2008 when Harbaugh was hired for the first time, and he began as the secondary coach. So he was the secondary coach from 2008 to 2010. When he was the secondary coach, the Ravens led the NFL interceptions with 28 picks in his first year as a secondary coach in 2008. Now, of course, he had Ed Reed, so let's not forget that part. But pretty good. They were 5th in picks in 2009 and 7th in 2010. So then Greg Madison moves on. He goes and becomes the defensive coordinator at Michigan. Okay. And that's when Chuck Pagano succeeded him. Kind of similar to the way Mike Macdonald took over, right? It was like, okay, young, kind of a first-time thing. Although Pagano has a little bit more experience than Mike Macdonald for sure. But when he became the defensive coordinator, it got better, Bobby. Things were not great under Greg Madison. They were fine, but not great. I mean, he moved to Michigan, but I think it was kind of one of those, hey, you need to go get a new job kind of a thing, but we're not going to like bury you type situations. Under Chuck Pagano, the defense ranked 3rd in points and yards allowed. So they were solid on both. And the pass defense when he took over went from 21st to 4th. And that year they had 17 interceptions. He had 1 year and the Colts came and plucked him. And if you want like an analogy, the way people felt when Mike Macdonald left, it might have hurt a little bit more with Mike Macdonald because a lot of people wanted Mike to take over for Harbaugh. But when I tell you people did not want to see Chuck Pagano go, like it was a bittersweet day, sweet because you're happy for him, but bitter because he was so good. And Bobby, he was such a likable guy. He goes on to the Colts and he's only loved even more with his battle with leukemia. And he overcomes that, goes on and has a 53-43 overall record as a head coach, 2 division titles, an AFC championship appearance. And then he went was the defensive coordinator for Chicago Bears and coached Roquan Smith. So he knows Ro. Like when I tell you, like you're absolutely right. Because he won't be a guy trying to overshadow Zach Orr. He's not looking for that. He's been a head coach. He's just here. I want to know how Harbaugh lured him out of retirement. That's what I want to know. Great, great hire. And Bobby, this helps so much because remember last year, Ravens had Denard Wilson, Anthony Weaver, Mike Macdonald, and Zach Orr. You had 4 defensive coordinator quality defensive assistants.
Yep.
You can't be more excited than when like a phenomenal player is signed. But in terms of like the cap of excitement for an assistant coach, I hit that with Chuck Pagano. And you're on mute. So you may not have anything else.
Which was intentional because I'm bringing in literally up to the second fresh new material for us here because as I mentioned a second ago, Chuck is on the McAfee show right now addressing this very topic, and here he is talking about how this came to fruition. Chuck Pagano, the newest Ravens senior secondary coach, on the McAfee show just a short while ago.
Congratulations on the Ravens gig. My first question would be, when did you start to kind of consider to get back into coaching? You know, we've chatted ad nauseum about, and we started the show with, you know, you football guys, this is kind of what your life is. It is ball. You've been acting as if you're a head guy basically this entire time you've been retired. You show up here, you have 3 notebooks full of notes. You're in calls early in the morning with the 33rd team. You've been acting as if you're still in the league while you've been out of it. But when did you decide, you know what, maybe I should be getting back into this thing?
Probably the day I retired. They walked away in 2020, to be honest. I've always thought about it, Pat, and you know, being around you guys and doing the gig with you and the 33rd team and then hanging around, you know, Boise State and the coaches here, you know, Pat, it's always been in the back of my mind. It just had to be, you know, the perfect situation. And, you know, obviously, you know, I'm very, very familiar with that organization. That had a ton to do with it. The role is absolutely perfect. You know, I'm really not dying to be a head coach again and have all that responsibility, a coordinator, all the pressure that comes with that. Just an opportunity in this role to go help, you know, John and this organization and that defensive staff, Zach Orr, they've got a great staff over there. So the role was important. Obviously, people matter. You know, I know the people in that organization. From the top down, it's the gold standard. Steve Bisciotti, Ozzie, who's was the GM, Eric DaCosta, who's now the GM, John Harbaugh, the staff, everybody in that building. I know all those people. Not much has changed. So it always comes down to people, right, Pat? Just like the people you have there, and you know. And then the last thing, you know, what'll pull you off the couch is opportunity to win and win it all. They built a phenomenal roster, as we know, right? We've been watching them. They are a wagon from top to bottom. Eric and John and that personnel staff, that coaching staff, they built one hell of a roster. They've got a bunch of dudes on both sides of the ball and special teams. So those things, all those things we just chatted about, yeah, I've never really stopped. I think you probably knew that. The boys probably knew that. You could feel that, but this opportunity was just too good to pass up.
That's awesome, Bobby.
Does that answer your question from a couple minutes ago?
Literally as if we planned it. As if we planned it. First of all, he said he never stopped wanting to coach again, which I'm telling you, man, these coaches, they're a different breed. I've worked around them for years. They are a different breed. They sleep on their couches in their offices. They grow beards throughout the week and then shave right before the game. Like, they go home to, I'm telling you, they are in the building probably twice as much as players are. It's bananas, the amount of time they commit to it. But what I also heard, which is what I had predicted, is he says, I'm not literally looking to be a head coach again. He's not looking to be like the top guy again. He's not looking to like overshadow Zach Orr. I'm sure he's very aware that Zach Orr is the up and comer. Now, who knows what could happen if Zach Orr went on to become a head coach, because he's certainly on that trajectory as a young guy. He could do that. But then he talks about, he knows, has all the relationships. He says it's the gold standard. And then he's like, he loves the roster. I'm going to get into that. I got another clip of him talking about the defense specifically in just a minute. But the ending line is, it was just too good of an opportunity to pass up. It's one of those opportunities where it's like, it was too good for him to pass up. And like, to your point, why wouldn't the Ravens want him back?
Yeah, I think he's still got a lot to give. And he'll turn 65 in October, for those who are curious. Harbaugh is 62. He'll be 63 in September. So, and look at him. You think he's still got some youthful exuberance to him? There he is in the McAfee studio with his For the Brand sweatshirt. I mean, Chuck, that's what I mean, Sarah, by I don't think you could put a price tag on the level of importance of him kind of embracing what McAfee's asked him to do.
Right.
Like, he's been the elder statesman for them with all the experience that he brings, and then the coach that's in their operation. But as you can see here, he's also still a kid at heart in his mid-60s. So I think this is just, it's a total no-brainer hire. And I don't think that, if I'm a betting man, I don't think this whole 32nd ranked passing defense will be a thing moving forward, particularly in the first 10 weeks of the 2025 season. Not under his watch.
For real, though. For real. Like, that 32nd pass defense, not happening under his watch. And here was his reaction to the Ravens defense. This was after the Houston Texans wins on Christmas Day. And we just heard in the last clip that he thinks the roster is phenomenal. Here he is specifically about the defense back after the Ravens beat the Houston Texans.
Coach Pagano, you said that defense is able to go on a run right now. You think that defense can win a Super Bowl. Why is that?
So since the bye, right? 3-0. They're averaging 33 points on offense and only giving up 11 on defense. So I think 2 or 3 things happened, right, during that bye week.
Okay.
Zach Orr, first-time defensive coordinator, right? So he's 31 years old. He's starting to fall into a groove. I think the players are getting to know him. He's getting to know his players. That's number one. He's getting more comfortable in that role, calling the defense for them. Number 2, Kyle Hamilton is now playing safety full-time. If you remember back, they were giving up a ton of explosive plays, right? Their pass defense was 32nd in the National Football League forever, right? So they move him back to safety. Darius Washington's playing the other safety, right? So from a communication standpoint, front to back, Roquan handles the front, Kyle handles the back, Darius chimes in, and then Marlon Humphrey is playing nickel full-time now. If you remember back, Kyle was playing dime, he was playing nickel, he's playing big nickel, first and second down. He settled in at safety. They got a couple players back from injury. Big baby Michael Pierce is back. He missed 4 or 5 weeks. Travis Jones missed some time on the defensive line. Van Oy's
killing it.
Killing it.
I believe he'll be joining us tomorrow, Kyle. Keith Van.
Nice.
Keith
Brandon Stevens is playing his ass off at one of the corners. And then the rookie, Nate Wiggins, out of Clemson, he's coming into his own. So this thing's turning into a juggernaut again.
Yeah.
I mean, with the offense the way it is, now they got this thing fixed on the other side. You don't want to see this group.
Well, the Bills, I mean, obviously they shot themselves in the foot there, but Bobby, the only one lie told there, which was about Brandon Stevens kind of building him up. I mean, he was working hard, but the results weren't there. But it's just so funny to me that he could name he already knows the roster, right? He can name every single guy, went through the entire defensive roster, seeing how they fixed it. And then Bobby, he's going to get everybody back except for Brandon Stevens. He's the only one that the Ravens essentially, who's not under contract. And Eric DeCosta essentially said last week that they were going to let him test the market. Who knows what they could get in the draft there? Spoiler alert, I've got a Daniel Jeremiah pick projection for the Ravens later, which could fill that Brandon Stevens role. But man, I just haven't seen somebody so excited, to your point. Like he was beaming in that Pat McAfee video explaining why he came out of retirement. Like he just looks so excited.
You already know they're retooling, whether it be through free agency or the draft too, if that's what you're getting at. So there's going to be more personnel at his disposal in the coming months for sure. And I think, so that clip after the Texans win, he referred to him as a juggernaut, a team that you didn't want to see. And then just today on the McAfee show, which he's still on, by the way, he's doing a long segment. So he's going through the whole league, and he's still got his McAfee sweatshirt on. And we're going to have to track him down, by the way. I've already been thinking about ways to do so. But he called him a wagon in today's interview. So this is a guy that seems like he understands what he's signing up for. And again, I can't think of one downside.
Oh, I want to show one more clip here, Bobby, that shows you the relationship between Chuck Pagano and John Harbaugh. They did their own little side-by-side like we are in their different offices talking to each other. I think it was on the 33rd podcast there. And they talk about how at first Pagano hated John. And by the way, Bobby, this is like everybody that I've ever talked to when I did that John Harbaugh specific podcast when I was still with the Ravens. John Harbaugh came in hot and he was ready to fight everybody, and Pagano was ready to fight him. So they talk about that, how they evolved. And then John tells a story about how he almost fought Jarrett Johnson, which I've heard this story before, but if you haven't, it's pretty funny. So this is like brother type conversations when you are like to the brother level.
Hall of Fame football players. I watched it, but you came up to me and you just, after an individual period, and I'm thinking, damn, that was really good. And that wasn't worth the shit. That might have been the worst I've ever seen. And I wanted to fight you right there. I wanted to fight you. But then as I looked at it, that night, the next day, whatever, and then now I'm like, you made me better. You make other guys better. Because that's, I think, where leaders fail, and where I failed many times and I grew in that role, is just the accountability part of being able to hold your brother accountable and have a tough conversation and tell him the truth, and because if you don't have those, then that's not being a great leader, right?
No, and you were a great coach. Remember the time, the very first OTA practice, back when OTA practices were like basically contact practices. They've changed all that now, and basically the defense, the first year the defense was the big brother, and that's what Rex wrote on that. We're the big brother, offense is the little brother, and Cam was like, well, we're not going to be the little brother anymore. So it got to be a little heated out there, and Rex is bringing every blitz known to man, and the defense is hooping and hollering, when they made plays and stuff like that, and it got really like mean, and I'm like, this is a team. This is really kind of rough. So I kind of go walking over there, and I might have mentioned something about being a team or something like that. And then basically a couple guys kind of got on me, and this is us, this is our team, this is our defense. We're a great defense. And of course that snapped me. I said great defense. I said 26 in the league. Oh no, we were seventh in the league. And I go, what, yards? I said, when's the last scoreboard that you saw yards up there? 26 in the league in points. That's what you keep track of. So tell me how great 26 is. And Jarrett Johnson, who we've laughed and hugged about today, he comes marching out at me like he's going to kick my butt. So basically, I look him right now, and I kind of go toward him, and I go, you want to go? You want to go?
Have you heard that story before? Yeah.
Oh yeah. And it's so fitting. Like That is such a classic early John Harbaugh type
Yes.
story, right? Like that is so fitting.
So absolutely fitting. And I interviewed Jarrett Johnson about that. And he told me, he's like, I was ready to fight him. But like he came around and he loves Harbaugh now too. It was just Steve Bisciotti told me that he told Harbaugh that the biggest thing he wanted Harbaugh to do was to get rid of that big brother, little brother vibe between the defense and the offense, to the point where the defense is basically trying to intimidate the offense and say, just don't screw this up for us. Don't throw any picks. Don't try anything creative. Just let us, we'll even score. You know what I mean? And so Jarrett Johnson was like, no, it was the wrong vision for us to have. And so because you had those big personalities like Ray and Ed and JJ, and I mean, they were just on and on and on and on, Harbaugh had to come in hard like that. Bisciotti wanted him to, and he did. And so he's been able to soften up because now everybody understands that it's a team concept, but that's what he had to do back then. So it even ruffled Chuck Pagano's feathers. But to a man, every guy will say, you know, I get it now. I get it now. I didn't get it then, but I get it now, including Chuck Pagano. So it just shows you the type of relationship he's going to hit that ground running. He already knows what he's getting into with the Ravens organization.
Which brings us to Mando, today's episode sponsor, and the starter pack right now, as you can see online right now at Shop Mando, and we've got a link that's included in the show notes. It's also a pinned comment right now, our unique URL, which will get you what our deal is, which I'll tell you about in just a second. But the Mando starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like the mini body wash or the deodorant wipes, and free shipping on top of that. As a special offer for our subscribers, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack in total. So use code VAULT and visit mandopodcast.com/vault. Again, that specific link can be found in the show notes. I want to continue to thank Mando and everything that they provide for hygiene, for continuing to support the show. And right now, again, you can go to the website and it'll bring you over to the starter pack. What I like about some of these products, especially gearing up for my trip to New Orleans to cover Radio Row and the Super Bowl next week, is how easy these are to travel with. I mean, almost every single one of them is underneath like the 2.5, 3 fluid ounce requirement, so you don't have to check bags and whatnot when you're on the flights, which is important for a short week of travel, which it will be for me. I like this body wash right here, the bourbon leather, the free wipes. So all this is really good stuff. We would appreciate it if you guys would use our discount code if you're interested. And all that information can be found in the show notes. A special thanks to Mando for supporting the show as we officially hit the off season. And where are we off to next? Because this whole Pro Bowl thing is being trashed by a lot of players in the media based on what it is or isn't. And maybe the ultimate indicator of what it is right now is something that I don't think players really value. How about you?
Well, before we get to the Pro Bowl, do you mind? I'll give your voice a rest and I can read some super chats so we can get reaction to Pagano and then we move on to Pro Bowl.
Yeah.
So you just rest your voice there and get it together. We'll talk about the Pro Bowl. Captain Hard Bobby, this entire week has been the first person to give a super chat this entire week. So, but he's upped it. Usually it's like a $4.99. So we appreciate you. He's up to $9.99 here. He says, I feel good about next year. It's really a run it back season. Yes, it is. Just need Stanley to resign. I think it takes a special left tackle to know how to protect Lamar and when to block or let go when he takes off. I'm not against that. We'll see. Stanley's going to try to make some money, I imagine. Asmodeus, your guy, Richard, says, hey, Bobby, drink hot today to get your voice back. Is that not what I told you? I was like, do you got something warm next to you? Do you? Did you get something?
Man, as you could see, I screwed up a lot of things in our pre-show meeting, like that I usually get right. And one of the things I also forgot was honey tea that I told you I was going to have. So I've got cough drops that I'm sucking on. I got Gatorade. I've got water. And yeah.
All right. We got stuff. Asmodeus goes on to say, let's limit Bobby's talking for today. Heal up 100 emoji. Zhang says, glad to see you back, Bobby. I have also been sick the last week, and your voice sounds similar to mine. Not fun being sick while watching the Ravens lose. Excited to see what the future brings.
Man, I hope you're feeling better there, Jang.
And Sharu, also a huge supporter of the show. Good to see you back, Bobby. Sarah, you've done really well alone. I think this move is a good one, talking about Pagano, and sets up well for the future.
Well, hey, Sharu, I'm hoping, since I was with him the day of the game, he came out to the tailgate with me right before life ended, right? It's like, It's funny. I really view the whole Buffalo experience as one that went really well up until like the loss, the bus transmission breakdown, me breaking out in full body chills and being stuck on the bus for hours and hours and hours. Being that I was with Sharu and I was one of the last to come into contact, he was one of the last humans I was about to come into contact with after I came down with all this. Sharu, I hope you are healthy, my friend, and it was great to see you out there in Buffalo.
Yeah, hopefully everybody out there is healthy. I know that flu is going around. But to your point, before those super chats, we got the news yesterday, since it's Pro Bowl week. I believe it's being played this weekend. They're doing practices this week. Yesterday, we find out, it's announced that Lamar Jackson will not be going to the Pro Bowl, so he will be replaced by Pats quarterback Drake May. This feels like a Tyler Huntley type situation all over again, but this time for the Pats. Meanwhile, Derrick Henry will also not go, and instead he will be replaced by the Bills Pro Bowl quarterback, I guess Pro Bowl now, James Cook. So what's crazy is Lamar Jackson lives about, I mean, I don't know exactly where Lamar lives, but Pompano Beach, Florida is about 3 hours away from Orlando, which is where the Pro Bowl will be held. I know Derrick Henry is back in Texas, but these are not long distance type things. We've gotten no official word of why they won't be going. My guess, and I think my guess is probably similar to everybody else, and we're happy to be told differently if they want to come out and give their reasoning. But my guess is that they have no desire whatsoever to be at these Pro Bowl games, which could range for various reasons. Such as we don't even care about the Pro Bowl. We're locked in and want to just go to the next season. We're ticked off about our early exit, have no desire to go and play, whatever these games are that they got going on, these like game show type games, have no desire to go do that. I mean, Lamar literally is 3 hours away and has no desire. So they're locked in. Now, just for the record, it still does count as a Pro Bowl for both of them. It would be Lamar's 4th, Derrick's 5th. And but neither one of them going. Do you blame them?
No, I don't blame them at all. Look, this is what I was referencing a minute ago. When former players, in this case, a pretty darn, historic player such as J.J. Watt is tweeting things like this with his petty hat on, by the way. He's definitely got a petty hat on. He writes, when you get 5 alternates deep, just call it the participation bowl. So, and guess what? That is a sentiment that has been echoed throughout much of the football community in recent years. Since the game itself, Sarah, was taken away at the Pro Bowl, it doesn't pack a punch. Now, here's the funny thing. Even when the game was there towards the end of the game era, it was lacking a punch. And so I think it needs a complete makeover. It's got an identity crisis. It's a fun time. Marlon just landed down there with his newborn and his significant other, and I think there's a fun reason. I know Pat Ricard, he and I communicated yesterday. He's going to be coming on the show next week, which we'll look forward to having him on. And I know that he enjoys the experience getting down to a tropical environment this time of year. And it can be fun for the family, right? I'm not taking away from that at all, especially people that have young kids. But I think you've just seen in recent years the way the average player views this event. It's an event.
Well, what's funny is that you just said it needs a complete makeover. The way they're doing it now, there was just a complete makeover a few years ago.
I
That's
know.
the funny thing. And it's almost gotten, not almost, I feel like it's actually gotten worse because
Yeah.
first of all, when you had it in Hawaii in the off season, you could have Super Bowl winners there, right? So you're already taking out the two teams that are in the Super Bowl. So you're already not getting your best players from the year there. That's the first problem. So the second problem is like the wounds are too deep, right? When you put it right after these divisional and conference championship weekends,
Yeah.
because it's like the wounds are still fresh. So maybe I can't remember when they did it in the offseason last year, but it was certainly after the Super Bowl, where you give guys time a little bit to heal. Like Lamar doesn't want to go and like joke around with everybody and Derek doesn't want to go do that when they felt like they shot themselves in the foot, right? And didn't win this game. And so I'm sure other guys that are in the divisional round and this and that, they don't want to go. Then on top of it, you have guys maybe like Zay Flowers, who maybe would go if he had more time to heal, right? It's his first ever Pro Bowl. It's the first time the Ravens ever have a wide receiver going to the Pro Bowl, but he can't go because he's still not out of the woods with his knee. And then on top of it, a lot of these guys are from Florida. So it's like, what am I going to go do, a couple hours down the road? Whereas like Hawaii, it's like, okay, yeah, I'd love a free trip to Hawaii, you know? So just the location change and the time of year that they do it, I think hurts it. And then I don't know, I don't mind some of the Pro Bowl games or whatever, but it's not what like I'm tuned in for. What I'm tuned in for is I want to see Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry dapping it up with Patrick Mahomes and their guys out there. You know what I mean? And so, but if the stars aren't going at all, which you've destroyed by the timing of it and the place, then like move it back to Hawaii and put it back in the off season. That's at least the first start. And then you can toy around with the games from there.
Would love to get a taste tester right now from those of you in the live chat. Over 2,200 concurrently joining us this afternoon. How many of you will be tuning in to the Pro Bowl games this weekend? Will you seek it out? Will you maybe stumble upon it when you're flipping through YouTube TV or whatever subscription service you use? Or is it something that is completely irrelevant going into this weekend?
And just to sum up, I really liked Mark Viviano's, as you guys are answering that. Mark Viviano says, Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson say no to the Pro Bowl. They are future Hall of Famers still seeking a Super Bowl. Flag football and skills games at an amusement park just don't cut it. A reminder that the Ravens have the most talent, but got to get over the hump. And Bobby, I would say this. I don't think that most people are tuning into the games like you're talking about, like the skills challenge or even the game itself. Very few people are watching it. But what is nice are like the clips that come out of it. That's what I like. And again, that's why you want at least the stars there. So like we're in this social media age where like, a 60-second clip where Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes have a conversation, right? About who knows what. And they know they're mic'd, so it's not private, right? And so it's like, I want to see that conversation. Or you have Derrick Henry, talking to, I don't know, Josh Allen or whoever, like whatever it is. Or you go out there and you're like recruiting, man, you got to come over to the Ravens, or you're a free agent, come check us out over here. I know that Steve Smith Sr., one of the reasons why when he left the Panthers that he wanted to come over to the Ravens is because he established a relationship with John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh put on his recruiting hat and he's like, I like this coach. I want to play for him. So that was huge. So even if the ratings are down, which I know the NFL wants to get up, there's all those other things that on social media, if the NFL leveraged it correctly on social media, sure, they may not be doing the game, but we all want to see these interactions that you guys have them mic'd up and you can put those out and you can make money that way. I mean, I know they're trying to make money all these different ways. And so it's important that the most important thing, nobody's going to watch if the stars aren't there. So the first thing you got to do is get the stars back there. And to me, the location and timing change would do that.
We appreciate you guys for being with us this afternoon. Over 2,300 concurrents on your way in. If you'd like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and hit that notification bell we'd be really appreciative of that, which now brings us to Ravens great Jamal Lewis, Sarah, who stole some headlines.
Yeah, so he gave his reaction to TMZ Sports about it. I kind of cut the segment down to the most pertinent parts. He obviously blamed the turnover, so I put that in the beginning. But he definitely called out the coaches, their decisions and play calling. So I'll play that, and we can react on the other side. And a shout out to Dreams, who sent me a super chat yesterday asking me if I had seen it, and I had not. I asked him to send me a link. He did. So thank you, Dreams. So shout out to Dreams. And then this is courtesy of TMZ, Jamal Lewis, Ravens legend running back.
You just can't go into a game like that against an opponent like that, in that environment and turn the ball over. You know what I mean? Like that was the biggest part. And you know, in any game like that, no matter who you're playing.
Is there something or someone to blame? It's hard because it's two of the best players on the team, and Lamar and Mark Andrews has drawn a lot of criticism. Is that fair, or you just move?
Oh no, heck no. You know, honestly, why were we in that position? You know what I'm saying? Like, why didn't we take the points and kick the field goal earlier? You know, and so therefore we wouldn't have had to go for a 2-point conversion, first of all. So that, you know, that in my case is why don't you take the points early, right? And at the same time, you know, if you did have to go in and actually do that, you know, why not hand the ball off to Derrick Henry? You know, your 250 or 60 pound, you know, running back, you know, that you're paying, you know, instead of, you know, taking that risk of a 2-point conversion and throwing it. You know, that just doesn't make sense. That kind of game, you know, that atmosphere, you know, that's what he's built for. That's what you bought him in for. And I just think that they didn't close the gap and use him where it was mostly needed. And that was, you know, when you're trying to get a 2-point conversion to take you, you know, to tying up the ball game, to proceed on, you know, you have to put the ball in his hands. And at the same time, put the ball in Lamar's hands. At least run it. You know, at least run it. Don't put it in the air. You know what I mean? And that's what they chose to do. But hey, you know, if it would have went the other way, we would have been having another discussion. But at the same time, this is what it is.
What would you say to Mark Andrews?
Man, you know what? You learn from it at the same time, you know. But, you know, hey, the probability of you making that catch, you know, on a 2-point conversion is very low, period, because it is a 2-point conversion. But at the same time, I just think that, you know, I wouldn't even be bothered by it. I'm sure it's going to sting and it hurts right now. But at the same time, it's not his fault because they should have never been in that position.
Okay, so lots of things to unpack here, Bobby. He kind of calls out 2 or 3 different things. The first thing he's calling out is he doesn't like that they went for 2 and they threw it to Isaiah Likely in the third quarter. The Ravens were down 19-21 at that point. He said, kick the field goal. He meant extra point so that you're 20-21 in that third quarter. So that's the first thing. He doesn't like that they went for it early. He said to take the points. The next thing he's criticizing is that Derrick Henry didn't get the call for the 2-point conversion. And then the last thing he says that it's not Mark Andrews' fault because he shouldn't have been put in that situation. Do you have any strong reactions? You agree with all 3 points, agree with some, disagree with others? What's your reaction?
How can it not be Mark's fault? I guess that would be my first reaction to it. He's looking at it from I guess he's looking at it from the play calling perspective of it, but
yeah,
I refuse to live in that world. You know, this is a guy who's made that catch and that kind of play, 9 times out of 10 consistently throughout his career, aside from you take the postseason away. He's been as reliable as any player in the history of the franchise outside the postseason. So I'm fine to nitpick the way that he is the other 2 categories that you referenced, but that's what comes to mind first.
Yeah. So first of all, Ravens legend, love him. We were there at the same time together. He was one of my favorite interviews. He was always available. I remember as an intern in 2005, he was actually one of my first interviews. And I don't remember why, but he started busting out a song, the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, but in a different version of it. But shout out to Jamal. I hardly doubt he remembers me from back then, but I sure do remember him. Absolute Ravens legend. I would have had no problem if the Ravens handed the ball off to Derrick Henry on that 2-point conversion. If you decided to call his number, I wouldn't have had a problem. And like you said, it's not surprising that a battering ram like Jamal Lewis, whose number was called upon frequently, wanted to see another battering ram from the 2 get called upon. So I would have had zero problem if the Ravens had called Derrick Henry's number. And that's even saying something, because when the Ravens got to the 2-yard line with that pass to Rashad Bateman and they went to Derrick Henry, they did a run blitz and he got a -1 yard. So, they had been at the 2. They did, and with that, they had 3 tries. If he had been stuffed for a loss, we would still be having the same conversation. Why did you go to Derrick Henry? Everybody in the world knows you're going to Derrick Henry, that kind of a thing. So while I wouldn't have had a problem if they called Derrick Henry's number, because I agree with what he's saying, he's this 250-pound running back. This is what you bring him in for. I've got no problem with it. At the same time, I cannot criticize a call that gets your guy so wide open that when I go and check the end zone angle, I can hardly even get him in the shot.
Exactly.
Because I rewatched the play several times, and Hamlin originally had Mark Andrews. He was keyed in on it. He was following him, but he let go of him for 2 reasons. One, Todd Monken drew up a great play where he had Rashad Bateman coming the other way. You can see Bateman in the screen over here. He's all the way in the just to the right of the middle of the screen. So by coming across, it gobbled up Hamlin a little bit, whose responsibility was Mark Andrews, but also everybody else was keyed in on Lamar and Derrick. So it's a reason why he was wide open. And then I don't fault Monken for calling this play, and I don't fault Lamar because he threw a pass that was in his hands. So the thing I most disagree with from Jamal Lewis, when he says it's not your fault, you shouldn't have been in that position to begin with, he's babying Mark Andrews in this situation. You can disagree with the call. I have no problem with that. But Mark Andrews, I guarantee, does not want to be babied that way. No, Jamal, I can do this. Like not only did I want the ball in that moment, but I want it again. I wouldn't give it back to Mark because of what happened. I feel like I'm now going to call on somebody else. You had your chance. I'm not giving it to you again. The other thing he says Mark shouldn't have been in that situation. Yeah, I agree. Maybe if Mark didn't fumble the ball on the drive before, they wouldn't have had to go for 2 also, So to just say I don't blame Mark, that's probably the thing I most disagree with. Although maybe it's coming from a place of like trying to have his back. But like, if I'm Mark Andrews, I don't want to hear a former legend saying, it's okay, you shouldn't have been put in that situation in the first place. That's what you say to a child when a teacher puts you in a bad place or a parent puts you in a bad place because you're innocent and you're too young to understand it all.
Yep.
Like Mark Andrews wants that ball. I don't want to hear a legend saying, it's okay, they shouldn't have gone to you in the first place. This moment was too big for you. You know what I mean? So while, again, I wouldn't have minded if they went to Henry, I also can't criticize him when he's wide open like this. Like, they're all concerned about Lamar and Derrick. They're all concerned about him. The last thing on the analytics, I really want to bring on Ken McCusick when he was talking about whether you should go for it on the likely conversion. So I'm not as good as analytics, and this is why I want to bring Ken McCusick on here. But let me just share my screen real quick. That this isn't like this is so Jamal Lewis take the points, which has been said for years, but not in recent years. This isn't only a John Harbaugh thing. I don't know if that can get any bigger, but I'll just explain it to you. So 538 put up a chart of when you go for 1 or when you go for 2. And the way they describe it is you say, well, what's the overall win probability if you go for 1? And what's the overall win probability if you go for 2 based on the number of points that you're down? So if you guys can see into the screen or zoom in, I don't know, whatever, but you go down on the left-hand side of the chart, if you're down by 2, which is what the Ravens were when Likely had caught that when they scored and then they went for the 2-point to Likely. So the win probability, if you go for 1, is a 1.8. It jumps high up to 8.4 if you go for 2. Okay. It is the biggest discretion on this chart. It's not like, oh, it goes from 1.8 to like 1.9. And so you got to like the amount to the chance to win is significantly higher when you go for 2. And so even if you don't like the charge, because I know a lot of people are like, oh, analytics is destroying the game. Think about it logically. Okay. If you go for 2, you know you have 2 chances to go for 2. So if you go for 2 in the third quarter, there's not as much pressure because you know you can do it again if you score a touchdown again. So you get 2 tries at it. Now, if you succeed and you hit that 2-point conversion, then the second time you don't have to go for 2 points because a simple extra point will put you ahead. Now, if they had gone for 1 and then you're down by 1 when Isaiah Likely scored that second touchdown, I still think I like, honest to goodness, Bobby, if the Ravens just had a score, if they kicked 1 for 1 instead of going to Isaiah Likely on that 2-point conversion, then you're down by 1. When you score on that drive in the fourth quarter, you're down by 1. Do you kick the extra point to tie it, or do you go for 2 to get ahead? What would you do? Even if they didn't go for the 2-point conversion the first time. So now you're only down by 1. What do you want John Harbaugh to do? Do you want him to kick the extra point and try to go for overtime? Or do you want him to go for 2 and potentially win the game with the defensive stop? Which one would you do?
I'd probably tie it.
You would tie it. So you would play for overtime.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. What would you
I
do?
wouldn't. I would go for
No,
I
you
wouldn't.
good.
I've seen too many times where like another team with a top-rated quarterback, and I know that Josh Allen hadn't done much in that second half. I feel like they did kind of go a little conservative because they had a two-score lead. But either way, he's got to try to go down and do something, right? And so to me, I've just seen too many times where you put the ball back in the other person's hands, and or you leave it up to a coin flip. I don't like leaving it up to a coin flip in overtime. And I understand Josh Allen still would have had one more possession, but let's say the defense would have stopped him, then it's like, who gets the ball first? I don't like leaving it up to a coin flip. I like taking control of my destiny. And I've seen it too often where they just play for overtime, and then, and I get now you get to like, if they had scored a touchdown, you get a chance to come back and score a touchdown. Those are the new overtime rules. But I just like, let me just take them out right now. That's more my philosophy, is I like to go for it. So even if they had kicked the extra point with the Isaiah Likely one, I still would have gone for 2 at the end. That's my personal thing.
I hear you. You're putting the spirit of, the spirit of momentum shifts. You're putting that up for grabs with the coin toss. So
yeah,
I get it. I see both sides on that.
Definitely, that's my thing is, Jamal, I see that side for sure. And I also see what he's saying, give it to Henry. But it's hard for me to absolve Mark Andrews for sure. And it's hard for me to criticize Monken's play call when the entire defense is keyed in on Lamar and Derek, and Mark was wide open. So.
I continue to, I'm actually kind of in disbelief because that's the first time I heard Jamal's segment that you brought in, that he was so willing to absolve Mark. You kind of alluded to it earlier on. It does make you think that he's just sort of backing him from a loyalty standpoint, but
yeah, maybe. But I'm glad that he brought it up, right? Because I like to hear the opposing point of view. But Jamal Lewis did not convince me. No. I respect him And I understand his point of view, but he did not change my mind. I think it was the right decision to go for 2 both times. I think that Monken called a good play call because Mark Andrews was wide open, and I do not absolve Mark Andrews. I would have been okay if he had called Derrick Henry's number. I wouldn't have minded that, but I can't criticize him based off of how wide open he was.
I'm with you. Shall we get to quick hits?
Let's do some quick hits. This show felt so fast today. Maybe it's because you're back and I'm not just having to talk nonstop for an hour. But before we get to quick hits, let's get a couple more super chats, if you don't mind.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So here we go. Asmodeus says, hot toddy recipe incoming in IG for you, Bobby.
Send it, Richard. Send it in.
There we go. Sharu, he says, I'm well. You asked him if he was sick because he was there in Buffalo. He said, even with the loss, the entire Buffalo game was once in a lifetime experience. The weather, the vibe was something everyone should be a part of. It was great meeting you and your family.
Yeah, likewise, Sharu. It was, I think I spoke about it on the bus ride back. It was how residential it is surrounding Highmark Stadium, I think makes for a really unique experience. And when you add in the fact that it's divisional round weekend and the 2 front runner candidates, there was not one resident, Sarah, in the outside area of the stadium within maybe a mile or 2 that wasn't actively involved in the community that weekend. What do I mean by that? Every resident had tents and fire pits out in their front. They were doing full family sales, it looks like, in their backyard, in their front side yards, trying to get cars in. I mean, it made for a really unique experience. And the nice part is, Sharu, if people are really dying to go back to Buffalo, which I'm not going to lie, I'm a little scarred from it right now, being this is day 10 with the Buffalo plague, as I've jokingly referred to it as, people can have a chance. The Ravens and Bills play in Buffalo in the regular season next year. So there you have it.
Shrew has a little bit more, but on the topic of what we just discussed with Jamal Lewis and him criticizing or saying that Mark Andrews was not to blame, Shrew says the argument that says he shouldn't be in that position isn't a good one. It's really not. You as a player are literally there to be in that position. DMV Nation back with an orange super chat. Thank you. Robbie Pate, Harbaugh is going for the 2 always. It's a risk. Captain Hard, I'm sorry that Mark Andrews' fumble was worse than the drop he was scoring on the drive. We wouldn't have been in that position if he didn't fumble. That's right. You just can't. That's my bit. You can't absolve Mark. You can't. It's like it's the mistakes were so massive and they were so unforced. Like you can't baby him and say can't put him in that position. Now, if you want to say, hey, I wish you went to Derrick Henry, that's completely fine. Or he's bringing in, his past experience of like, well, when I played, it was always just take the points. And so that's fine. I think the NFL has evolved, not just John Harbaugh, but that part, the Mark Andrews part, is where I don't even think that like it's even understandable. The other 2 is at least understandable. So, but moving on to quick hit. So this was kind of fun. I didn't even think we needed to bring in the segment, but everybody's favorite analyst, Nick Wright, put together his mountain. You know how he does his mountains of, he calls it the Mahomes mountain. He does a mountain of QB tiers. Well, he did one for the best quarterbacks of the 21st century. Okay. 21st century, which I thought wasn't terrible, but I would make some moves. So I know you're dissecting it. Everybody can look at it. And for the audio only, I'll take you through. You tell me if there's any changes you would make, Bobby. So at the top of the mountain on a tier all by himself is Tom Brady, obviously. 7 rings. He has 7? Or did he go to the Super Bowl 7?
Tom has 7. Yeah.
That's crazy that you have so many that people lose track of Super Bowl rings. At least I did. Okay. Then he puts Mahomes and Peyton Manning on the next tier. Third tier has 3 quarterbacks. Aaron Rodgers, I believe he's a 4-time MVP, regular season, 1-time Super Bowl winner. Kurt Warner, Drew Brees. Those are the 3 on that tier. Next tier, reading left to right, it's Lamar Jackson, Big Ben Roethlisberger, Stafford, and Josh Allen. Then the final tier has Eli Manning, Rivers, Russell Wilson, Cam Newton, which, by the way, Bobby, I have a rabbit hole to go down with Cam Newton. Maybe we'll do that later. Cam Newton, and then Matt Ryan. So you had a minute to soak up. How do you feel about this little mountain here? The 21st century mountain of best quarterbacks.
So a couple of things stick out to me. It seems like Big Ben is relegated to a tier where he's not only a two-time Super Bowl champion, he's the only two-time Super Bowl champion, but the only other quarterback on that list is that has one is Stafford. So that seems like Ben is slighted here.
Yeah.
And then I'm not sure how Josh finds himself on the pyramid at all, respectfully.
For real, though.
I'm not sure why Burrow is not on. Why is Joe Burrow not on?
Exactly. Like, why choose that one? Like, if you're going to put up a guy that has like really no big accolades between MVPs or Super Bowls, like why Allen over Burrow? Totally agree.
Yeah. So those, I'd say, if there's two things that stick out to me, those would be the first.
Yeah. So I this is starting from the top. I think that Mahomes should be above Peyton. Peyton has 2 Super Bowls. Mahomes has 3 on the cusp of 4, and he's done it in way less time. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful to Peyton, but like the way Mahomes has started off is just another level. He already has more Super Bowl rings, and in 2 weeks could have double. Okay, so I would, because Nick Wright has done this before, I would leave the spot next to Mahomes vacant. Okay, I just don't think anybody else is on that tier yet. So I'd move Peyton down. How many Super Bowl rings does Warner have?
Kurt's got let's see. I think he's got.
Does he have more than one?
He's got one.
He's just got one,
including Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah, and he also, remember, because his career wasn't as consistent, didn't he have like 2 or 3, maybe even 4 years where he just was not playing well at all, and like almost his career was done. So I would put Peyton into Warner's spot and have Rodgers, Peyton, Brees. And Peyton would probably be the best of that tier because he has that extra Super Bowl. Then if Warner goes down, then I'm taking that, he takes the spot of Allen, and Allen is off altogether. Like, I listened to Nick Wright saying why he put Allen in there. And he's like, he's just the production. If he continues the same production over the next 5 years that he has now, even though he doesn't have the accolades, like he'll go to the Hall of Fame, because he saw all those other guys as like unquestionable Hall of Famers. But like, why do you do that for Allen and not like Lamar, for example, or Stafford, because they're still in the league, or Mahomes? Like you're projecting on him, but nobody else you are. So I would take Allen off, and there's a much respect to him, but he doesn't have any MVPs, and he doesn't have any Super Bowl even appearances. So I'd put Warner in that spot. And then you could argue, by the way, if you wanted to just like put Peyton down with everybody else and maybe extend that tier, Eli could go up, and I get it. Eli, regular season, not the greatest, but he has 2 Super Bowl rings.
And took down the undefeated Patriots. I mean, that's obviously that feels bigger than just one Super Bowl run, right? That year, taking down the undefeated New England Patriots.
Yeah.
People want Joe Flacco in the last tier.
Well, he's got a Super Bowl ring in this era. So certainly above Allen, right? Like, certainly if you don't want to leave a spot vacant, like, take Allen off, maybe move Eli up and put Flacco in there. But we haven't really commented on Lamar yet. I think Lamar is in a fair position because everybody in the first 3 tiers are either multiple Super Bowl winners, or they already had the multiple MVPs and then added on a Super Bowl. But when, not if, when Lamar gets that Super Bowl, Bobby, he moves up, put him in Warner's spot, and he's already top 4 or 5 quarterbacks of the 21st century and maybe of all time because of the way he's helped change the game and the idea of what a successful quarterback can be.
You got me really thinking about your Peyton suggestion.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's an old guard, right? There's this old guard in the NFL that views Peyton as untouchable, right below Brady. Yet, to your point, Mahomes through 7-8 years in this league, I mean, he's doing stuff that has never been done before. So, has he already done more to be on his own tier? I think there's a case to be made for that ahead of Peyton. I do. And maybe folks are just dragging their feet on that out of respect to Peyton because of the amount of time that he played, right? Patrick's almost in, I mean, solely based on volume. I think this is only Patrick's rookie season was 2017, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So he's still got a long way to go in terms of service time, but what he's accomplished is obviously second to none given the timetable of it.
Yep, totally agree. And now, can I quickly go down my Cam Newton rabbit hole real quick?
Sure.
There's I don't know if you've watched the show. It's in its 2nd season. I absolutely love it. It's called Special Forces World's Toughest Test. And what they do, for those that don't know, you know the concept of it, Bobby?
Well, yeah, I've just seen the viral clips of Cam.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen any of the viral clips. I've just been watching the show. I've been watching it since last season. So the concept is they take kind of like celebrities, right? Maybe like E-list or D-list, all that kind of stuff. And they put them through kind of revised, but military special forces tests. And they're insane, Bobby. Like they test you physically, emotionally, spiritually. Like they prey on your biggest fears. I mean, it is grueling, absolutely grueling. And I was shocked last year that a former girl that was on The Bachelor was one of only, I think, 2 or 3 people to finish the entire program. Like the amount, like the mental stuff is so important in these things. And so I've just really enjoyed watching Cam Newton on it, frankly, because he's like an absolute beast physically, obviously. Their very first challenge is they had to jump from a moving boat and grab onto the bottom base of a helicopter and then pull themselves up. Like both of them just going like one of the easier tests, to be honest, but it's still insane to think like I'm jumping from a moving boat onto a moving helicopter and I got to pull myself up in there. Anyway, Cam is like this huge human being and he's one of the last people to do it. And when he jumps the helicopter, Bobby, I'm not joking, the whole helicopter kind of tilts down because of his weight.
Well, this is the clip. This is the clip that I saw.
Oh, you saw that clip.
This is the one that I was referencing. I mean, what an unbelievable display of athleticism.
Yeah. And by the way, I've only watched the first 2 episodes, so I'm not giving any major. I'm very curious if Cam makes it to the end because when he did the chemical kind of welfare challenge where they make him take off their gas masks, like he panicked. And like, anyway, my point is when he panicked, I like Cam's approach to the show because he's there to grow. Like he knows what he can do physically, but he was like, he at first felt hoodwinked with that challenge because he didn't know that they were going to take his gas mask off. But the way he's been able to respond, and he's like, I know that there's so many areas in my life where I can get better. And he's like, I'm not used to being vulnerable and this and that. So it's just, if you just are interested in seeing Cam alone, but if you are interested in this type of show, go back to season 1. We're in the middle of season 2. It's so fascinating to watch people stretch themselves to their absolute boundaries and then some. And it's like, to me, it's super inspiring, but I've enjoyed watching Cam for sure.
Love it.
Yeah. Sorry about that rabbit hole.
No,
that was a long, quick hit. Next quick hit here to save your voice a little bit. Daniel Jeremiah and his mock draft 1.0. I believe it's 1.0. He has the Ravens taking a cornerback That would be 2 times in a row in the first round. Am I going to say his name right? I should know him, but you know that we're so locked in with the NFL. I just have not been on top of the draft yet.
Nor
Azari
have
Thomas.
I. Yeah, nor have
Yeah.
I. I mean, I was going to go Azariah Thomas, Florida State corner junior, but to be honest with you, yeah, between the season coming to a screeching halt quickly and then getting the Buffalo plague, I really haven't done anything. So
Yeah.
I'll get back to you on but I like the fact that they're going to bring in a corner back-to-back years. And if I'm not mistaken, wasn't DJ all over? Wasn't he all over this last year, thinking that it was like identifying corner? I don't know about Wiggins himself, but like corner being sort of the first round target for EDC. I if memory serves, I believe so.
Okay, you might be right. We should go back and look at how close he was with all of the Ravens picks for sure. He has nailed a couple. So yeah, the analysis taking Thomas out of it because we still need to go do our draft homework. Taking him out of it, let's say, I mean, it's a first round corner. Ravens rarely miss on their first rounders in general, but especially at corner. I mean, there have been some misses for sure, but it's pretty rare. I like this. I wouldn't hate it. I know we're all looking for like a game wrecker at pass rusher, which I think is hard to do at the end of the first round. I'm thinking of Odafe Owe, although they have found some in the fourth round with Judon and Zardarius Smith, but those are many years removed. So obviously I wouldn't hate a pass rusher, but I also wouldn't hate this because if they're moving on from Brandon Stevens, and we just heard Chuck Pagano talk about how frequently they had Marlin in the nickel, although it's actually less than most people would think. I looked this up. It was almost like a 40-60 split. It wasn't like a 90-10 split. Marlin was on the outside more than you would think. But nonetheless, you kind of want Marlin in that nickel role. And so if you could pair another rookie that could potentially have a first year like Wiggins did, then you've got your cornerback group locked down for many years to come. So I wouldn't hate it.
We feel pretty confident too that I know we're being careful with the whole Brandon Stevens thing, but it's probably going to be when, not if, right? Like we have to keep saying if he's not back, but it could very well be when he's not back based on Eric DeCosta's comments. And, there is still some young guys that are going to have a chance as well. Like a TJ Tampa, whose year got off to a tough start with that double sports hernia surgery in the summer. And then some other injuries that kind of set him back throughout the year. And then another DB whose birthday it is today is Bo Braid, who will have a chance to make the 53-man roster as he did as an undrafted rookie. This past summer, the Maryland standout played his high school football here locally in Clarksville for River Hill. Mostly a special teams guy this year. But happy birthday to Happy birthday to Bo, who turns 23 today.
Absolutely.
And friend of the show, I might add.
Happy birthday to him.
And he came on with us. Oh gosh, actually, I think it was just. Were you there for that? Right after he made the team, I can't remember if I did that solo or not. But Bo came on the show last summer.
No, I was not here for that.
Okay.
I remember you getting him, and I can't remember why I had to dip out, but I was not here for that.
Oh, no worries. I know a lot of people have been following his career, just being that he's got the local ties. So this is somebody that I know a lot of people want to see success for at the NFL level in Baltimore, and you can add me to that group.
By the way, chat has a lot of opinions on who they should draft or what position they should draft with in the first round. Listen, I could be, as long as it's the best player available for sure, but if you wanted to get a dominant guard at the end of the first, I'd be okay with that. If you wanted to get, that pass rusher, you could find a stud safety, because safeties always fall. And then you could, put a free safety next to Ardarius, and then you can use Kyle Hamilton as that Swiss Army knife for that chess piece. So, I wouldn't mind, because there's no like huge need over someone else, right? Like I could see a corner, I could see a guard, I could see a safety, I could see a pass rusher. As long as they don't miss, I could see any one of those positions being filled in the first round. So, but that'll do it. Did we hit all the super chats? Are we all caught up? Let me see here.
Richard hit us with another one.
Okay. As someone who likes to drink, be careful to not overdo it. Alcohol draws blood closer to the skin, but core temperature goes down. Easy to get hypothermia. Did you drink while you were out there?
The night before the game, I had a couple drinks while we were at Rec Room, doing all those pregame shows and whatnot. But
I know you don't on game day.
Yeah, I never do.
Too much work. Yeah.
I never do. Aside from, I may have actually. Did I in London? I may, because I actually went to the game in London, so I think I had one or two that day. But yeah, obviously I haven't had a drink since all this went down. And for those of you who are just chiming in or pop on late or whatever, thank you for your patience. Obviously, I probably sound a lot worse than I actually feel, although I'm not out of the woods yet. I have a call coming up here in about 10 minutes to see if I have an upper respiratory infection. I tested flu positive last week. It's been 10 days since the Buffalo trip and here's this call right now, actually. Would you mind closing up the show for?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just glad you're back. Glad you're back.
Thanks. I'll talk to you in a second. I'll catch up with you in the waiting room.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Oh, whoops. There we go. Removed the wrong person there. All right. Well, there we go. Bobby is back. Hopefully he continues to ascend because he is headed to New Orleans to go cover the Super Bowl. I'm sure he'll get lots of good guests while down there. So thank you for joining the Vault today on the noon hour lunch live stream. Great news about Chuck Pagano. Great reaction that he gave on the Pat McAfee show this morning of why he came out of retirement. Too good of an opportunity to pass up. Talked about Lamar and Derek snubbing the Pro Bowl not snubbing them, and things that they need to do to fix it. Jamal Lewis not happy with the Ravens coaching decisions on the 2-point conversions down the stretch of the game. Good debate there. And then the mountain of the 21st century best quarterbacks, Lamar will keep moving up. I'm sure we will be back here. I know we'll be back here. I don't know what the news will be, but we will, whatever it is, we will have it all. We will dissect it. We will give it to you. We'll give our opinions. We appreciate all you guys. Oh, patrons, hold on now. Thank you to our patrons, Rossi Clark and I'm Zasso. I don't know if I said that right, but we appreciate you guys. If you also want to support the Vault outside of here on YouTube or just watching on Twitter, you can click the Patreon link to the Vault in the show notes. Thank you. Thank you, Tila, for giving me that little note yesterday when I didn't say it. So we appreciate the patrons. We appreciate all you for listening. And I hope you have a fabulous Wednesday. And I will see you back here tomorrow. Same time, same channel here inside the Vault. Have a good one.